Round two of U.S Mexico bilateral talks for the USMCA wrapped up in Washington yesterday. Rules of the origin, 3 days of talks, and Canada still isn't in the room. I'm Jack Jackson. I owned a 34-year-old manufacturing company for 17 years. Here's what was decided without Canada present and what it means to your supply chain before July 1st, which is only 14 days away, 2 weeks. So what was on the table? Well, round one in Mexico City covered automotive rules of origin, steel, aluminum, economic security. Round two in Washington added two new files. They've added agriculture and U.S. calls it level playing field, which is trade language for stop letting Chinese goods flow into our country through Mexico and Canada. The U.S. positions going forward in this round is clear. Greer, who is the trade negotiating in charge of the trade negotiating for the U.S., is said publicly the U.S. does not want to intend to return USMCA to a tariff-free baseline. He's told Mexican industry officials directly that the U.S. auto and steel tariffs should be expected to remain, even under the revised CUSMA USMCA TMEC agreement. That's big. Mexico came to Washington knowing it's negotiating for a tariff relief, not for a tariff elimination. So, got to believe that if Canada steps to the plate soon, we hope that that's what we'll be negotiating, not zero tariff. It's how much tariff. We need to get ready for that. Difficult for manufacturers to plan and strategize when you don't know what the rules are going to be. So Mexico's working through 52 specific U.S. trade demands. Section 232 has already cut Mexico steel exports by 36%. I'll have to look up the Canadian one, so that's where it's a 25% tariff on any steel and aluminum. Up to 350,000 Mexican manufacturing jobs at risk. That's the pressure Mexico's negotiating right now, and it explains why they're at the table and they're moving fast. But here's something that doesn't get much coverage. Mexico's economic minister publicly called on Canada to join these negotiations. Mexico wants Canada in a room. The U.S. hasn't extended the invitation. The gap between what Mexico wants and what Washington wants always tells you exactly where Canada's position is. So what's it mean for manufacturers in Canada? Well, whatever the framework in the U.S. and Mexico agree on these bilateral rounds becomes a template for Canada. Canada will have to negotiate, but what are you going to negotiate when the two biggest have already put a plan together? I think you're going to have to join. That's not speculation. That's just how the process is structured. And if automotive rules of origin get tightened in these rounds, and the U.S. 50% American content demand sits right in the middle of that, Canadian auto part manufacturers are being affected by these rules, and they have no voice in shaping. If agriculture side gets the deal structured around U.S. Mexico, Canadian dairy and grain importers inherit a framework that's built really around somebody else's interests, not theirs. Round three is July 20th in Mexico City. There's 3 weeks. That's 3 weeks after the July deadline. Canada's first formal bilateral round talks is still not announced. We have no date. The rules governing your products across the border have been written by Washington and Mexico right now. Canadian manufacturers who are documented CUSMA compliant and working with your broker who understands their supply chain is protected regardless of how these rounds land. But what's going forward, the ones that aren't exposed to whatever framework gets built, isn't going to be without. I'm Jack Jackson. This is Manufacturers Daily. Free 30-minute call. Link in the description. Like and share if you can. Let's get the word out. We'll see you tomorrow.